Hello and welcome back to the best of Rslash. Today we're taking a look at Malicious Compliance, where OP has to get a doctor's note to use the bathroom. This first story has been brought to you by Balloon Understudy. This was a long time ago, but I remember it clearly. We moved into a community with tight space in between our houses and our neighbors, and we didn't like them being able to see into our kitchen. We put up a bunch of plants, costing thousands, but my parents thought it would be worth it. A week later, my parents awoke to the plants being completely chopped down. My father was curious and marched down to our neighbor's house. He told my father the plants were on his property line, therefore he had total right to take them down. He warned that if anything were to go on his property again, he would report us to the authorities immediately. Later that day, my father called the company that put in the plants, and with the warranty, we could have them replanted next week for no charge. We made sure that there was no way it was on our neighbor's property. However, a few days later, we caught him chopping them down at 2 a.m. We called the police upon obstruction of property, and after a chat with my neighbor, he decided to call a professional and mark his property line. My father agreed. A few days later, I got home to find orange tape in my neighbor's yard. Apparently, his fence was 11 feet over our property line. We watched as he took down his fence, completely furious. Within the next month, we were enjoying our new space and privacy in our backyard, and my neighbor ended up losing a quarter of his backyard. My neighbor ended up having to pay almost $10,000 for the destruction of our property, and we got to plant our plants again. Too long didn't read. My neighbor chopped down our plants because he claimed we were on his property. After calling a professional, he lost 11 feet of his backyard and had to pay for the destruction of property, and we got to keep our plants. Then, FroggyC19 posts something similar in the comments. Something similar happened to my parents last year. New neighbor bought the house beside ours, started doing renovations without permits, but that's a whole nother story, and complained that our fence was on his property, and that the new stone walkway leading to the back my stepdad had built the previous summer needed to get dug up and removed along with the fence. My parents tried to reason with him, explaining that all the landlines in the area are all crooked, and that everything had been this way for 30 plus years without issues. He wouldn't hear of it and insisted on the removal, so my mom called the city and requested a new evaluation after fighting with this guy for months. Turns out, not only was the fence on our land, but his new one was on ours as well. His back fence was on the land of the backyard neighbor, and the same on the other side. My mom got the 3 other houses that bordered his to all get evaluations as well. So in the end, he lost almost half of his yard to the surrounding houses. Justice is so very sweet. This next story has been brought to you by Very Nice Username. I work at a grocery store. My boyfriend and me both buy our groceries there, and sometimes he'll see me and maybe wave or say hi. We don't chat or waste any time unless I happen to be going on break. My department manager didn't know I was gay when he hired me, and he figured it out when he asked me who the guy that was waving to me was. He made a weird face, not necessarily disgusted, but you get the point. Anyway, anytime my boyfriend would enter the store after that, he would keep his eye on him. Now, if he were to wave to me, my manager would start to berate me and try to make it out as if I'm slacking when I'm just stocking shelves and smiling in his direction. Nothing bad at all. He didn't care at all prior to learning he's my boyfriend. After a week, he has a private talk with me saying my boyfriend is causing too much of a distraction and he would shop here while I'm on shift, and that if something didn't change, I might be let go. I was mad. Told my boyfriend about it. He was even more mad. I didn't really want to make a big deal out of it though. This is a temp job, probably won't even have it longer than a year or two. So I decided to prank my manager instead of giving into legal or corporate stuff. We have other gay friends that shop there. Crazy enough, we look like regular people, so no one would realize, including my manager. Sure, my boyfriend won't shop there, but what about other gay people? That shouldn't matter. He just doesn't want my significant other distracting me at work. So, I mentioned what happened to my 5 friends, who mentioned it to their friends, and so on. My next shift, I bore witness to 30 extremely flamboyant and openly gay men and women flaunting their sexuality in the store. My manager was trying to hide in the back, but every customer needed manager's assistance for the most mundane questions, lol. He ended up going home early, but after that shock, he actually stopped berating me for the past couple of months. He might just be happy that I'm not very open about my sexuality, so he can choose to ignore it. Too long didn't read. My boss is homophobic, and 30 gay men and women over-dramatized their sexuality to make him feel uncomfortable because he was threatened to fire me because I'm gay. Oh my gosh, that is hilarious. Thank you, OP, for sharing that story. Then Pancreasaurus posts in the comments, "Oh my gosh, you called the gay mafia in on him. That's hilarious." This next story has been posted by Sockface Killer. I have a sweet snowblower, and I love to help all my neighbors by doing the whole block. I'm just that guy. After a moderate snow a few years ago, about 6 inches, my neighbor told me that he's very sensitive to noise and not to snowblow in front of his house. So later that same winter, we got 17 inches. I got every house on the block, front and back, except for his. Even better, he was out of town. The weather warmed slightly for an afternoon, then dropped again, so his 17 inches of snow became a wall-to-wall glacier. I live in Wisconsin. This is how we entertain ourselves in the winter. Edit. Wow. Thought I was just sharing a little story. Thanks for all the interest. Here's a little more. 1. He was not medically sensitive to sound. If he was, he would have said so, and I would have respected that. I often saw him outside listening to the Brewers on a loud radio as he did yard work, with municipal trucks and ambulances, etc. rolling by. Also, it was late morning. This is a guy who returned a plate of cookies because he was upset that we didn't know that he thinks sugar is evil. He yelled at kids for chalk drawing on the sidewalk. Total dick. 2. We didn't speak often, and he never mentioned the ice wall. I do not have any photos, unfortunately. It was hilarious, though. Even sat on the edge of it and had a beer with my other neighbor. Number 3. He moved to Iowa a year or so later. How's that for passive-aggressive? Thank goodness he moved because Iowa might be just nice enough to handle him. Is it malicious compliance? Just malicious or just compliance? I guess that's up to you. Thank you, OP. That is amazing malicious compliance. When you do favors for your neighbors as an active service and they don't appreciate it, I guess this is just one way to show them that they should be a little bit more appreciative. This next post has been shared by Argash. Cleaning out my home office today and stumbled across paperwork I had saved for whatever reason from a shitty call center job I worked at 15 years ago. This was an outbound sales thing, and it was non-stop calls all day. Needless to say, the job sucked. With the constant talking, though, your voice would start cracking throughout the day if you didn't hydrate. So I would bring jugs of water to sip on all day long. This, of course, meant frequent trips to the restroom. I never abused these trips, and they were always 3 minutes or less. But of course, this wasn't good enough for management. Oh no. One day, my manager demanded that I get a doctor's note if I wanted to pee at any time other than one of my 2 regularly scheduled breaks. I could tell she was convinced I would not do it. I scheduled the appointment and filled the doctor in, who thought it was hilarious that this manager either 1, didn't understand biology, or 2, was on a huge power trip. He provided me with the most condescending doctor's note ever. Needless to say, she was not happy. My coworkers, though, all made trips to the same doctor and got similar notes. Pretty sure I wore a shit-eating grin every time I walked to the bathroom after that. Then OP actually posts the picture that says, "To whom it may concern, this letter concerns my patient." OP requires a lot of fluid intake while talking on the phone in order to avoid drying out and becoming hoarse. When he drinks this much fluid, he must urinate every 60 to 90 minutes. Please excuse these brief visits to the bathroom as they are unavoidable. Sincerely, signed the doctor. OP, thank you so much for posting this story. And also, if you're just listening to the podcast or just listening to our YouTube channel, let me tell you right now, you're welcome. I was able to read this doctor's note with horrible handwriting just for you. Thank you, OP, for sharing the story, and thank you for listening to our content. If you like what we're doing, please leave a thumbs up, as this is the fastest way to help our channel grow. If you didn't already know, we post content like this 7 days a week. Not only do we post it on YouTube, we also have a podcast. So if you want to hear more, please make sure to subscribe.